Hey, what's up guys? This video is for section 8.3, which is multiplying polynomials. And we are going to look into how to multiply different polynomials. So for example, binomials times a binomial. We have trinomials times a binomial. And we can have many more polynomials. So one of the things we can use is the distributive property, the one you learn when you guys have a number outside of the parentheses, which is the same idea. But we are going to do it a little bit more times than just one number. So if you look at these two binomials that I have here on the screen, you notice that we have two parentheses, x minus 7, nothing in between the parentheses, and we have x plus 3. So when you guys do not have a minus or a plus in between the parentheses, that means that you are multiplying. So we do have multiplication, and we are multiplying two different binomials. So the distributive property is when you guys take the first term in this binomial and you are going to multiply, you are going to distribute x times the x, and then you multiply x times the 3. After you guys multiply those two terms, you are going to take the second term in the first binomial and you multiply this one times x, so negative 7 times x, and negative 7 times 3. So in a way, you guys are doing distributive property two times, because imagine you guys don't have this here, and I'm just going to cross it out so you guys see what I'm talking about. So imagine we don't have that there, but you guys will multiply the x times the x times the 3. And after you guys do that, then you imagine you guys don't have the x, so you cross out the x right there, and you guys will distribute the negative 7 and you multiply 3. After you multiply all those together, you are going to combine like terms. So let's do this step by step to show you what is the distributive property with two binomials. So what I like to do is I actually like to use different colors, and I'm going to show you guys that I'm going to take this x right here. So notice the box. I am focusing the distributive property with the x, and I'm going to multiply by this first term here. So I'm going to put here x times x. So we know that x times x, that's going to be x squared. But now I take the x again, and I multiply by the next term, the 3. So I'm going to multiply x times 3, and it is a positive 3. So we get 3x when you guys multiply. But after that, I'm going to take the second term in the parentheses. So I do have a minus 7 here, and I'm going to multiply again by the first term. So I have a negative 7 times x, and that's going to be negative 7x. And I multiply the negative 7 again times the next term over here, and we have a negative 7 times a positive 3. That's going to be a negative 21. When you guys look at all those terms right here, after you multiply, you are going to combine like terms. And we do have this term 3x and this term negative 7x to combine. If you guys remember, the 3x, it is actually a positive 3. I'm going to put the plus right there so you know it's a positive 3. So we're going to combine positive 3x times a negative 7x, and that's going to be negative 4x. But now you guys look at the x squared, and we don't have another x squared, so I'm just going to bring that one down. We have an x right here, and we do have a minus 21 here. We don't have another constant, so I'm just going to bring that one down. So my answer when you multiply the two binomials is the trinomial x squared minus 4x minus 21. So you guys follow the steps for the distributive property. You guys multiply each term, and then you guys combine like terms. So let's try a few more examples here using this property, and we are going to multiply binomials. So notice, we want to simplify. It doesn't really say you guys need to multiply, but you need to understand when it says simplify and you have polynomials, you are going to add, you are going to subtract, or you're going to multiply. So I'm looking at the parentheses here. I don't have anything in between the parentheses, so that is multiplication. So I'm going to take the first term right here. There's a q, and I'm going to multiply by this cube. I'm not going to write down q times q anymore. You just do some mental math. You actually multiply. And when you multiply q times q, that is q squared. And then you multiply q times the next term, the 4, and that's going to be a plus 4q. And then you guys take the second term, positive 7 times the q, and that's going to be plus 7q. And you guys take the next one, positive 7 times positive 4, and that's a positive 28. You guys look at the middle terms, you look for like terms, and this one here, positive 4q and the positive 7q, you can combine. So I'm going to bring down the q squared. I don't have another q squared, so I'm just going to bring this one down. I'm not going to add to anything else. Plus 11q, 4q plus 7q, you add the numbers. 4 plus 7 is 11, and you keep the variable q. Do not add the exponents because you're not multiplying, you're combining those two terms. And we have a plus 28 here. That's the only constant we have, so that's my answer. Now, you guys really need to be careful with the signs because sometimes you need to subtract the terms, sometimes you need to add the terms when you combine like terms. So let's try the next one here. I'm going to multiply x plus 2 times x minus 1. So I'm going to take the x, I'm going to multiply by the x over here. So that's going to be x squared. I take the x, I multiply by the negative 1. That's going to be a minus x right there. X times negative 1, that's a negative 1x or negative x. And you take the positive 2 here times the x right there. So that's going to be positive 2x. 2 times x is just positive 2x. And I take the positive 2 times the negative 1, and that's a negative 2. You guys combine like terms. We have the negative x in the middle and the positive 2x in the middle. So that's going to be a positive 1x. Remember, the negative x has an invisible 1 here. So negative 1 plus 2, that's positive 1. We don't need the 1 next to the x. So I'm just going to erase this one here, and it's just going to be an x. But I'm going to bring down the x squared, and I'm going to bring down the minus 2. We don't have another x squared term, and we don't have another constant. So that is my answer. Now, let's try another one. You guys have a 2x minus 3 times x minus 4. Same idea, same concept. You use the distributive property. So you guys will combine this first term, 2x times the x. Remember, the x has an invisible 1 there, so you multiply the numbers. That's going to be 2x squared. Then you multiply the 2x times the next term. Now notice we have a negative. So 2x times a negative 4. That's going to be a negative 8x. Then you guys are going to take the next term. So we have a negative 3 here. Negative 3 times 1x. That's going to be negative 3x. 3 times 1. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. And you keep the x. And then you multiply the negative 3 times the negative 4. And that's going to be a positive 12. Careful with the signs. Always double check the signs. Now you guys are going to combine like terms. So the ones in the middle, the negative 8x and the minus 3x. That's going to be negative 11x because they have the same number. You add the same sign. You add the numbers and you keep the sign. So 8 plus 3 is 11 and keep the sign negative. You bring down the 2x squared because we don't have another x squared term. And you bring down the 12. So my answer is 2x squared minus 11 plus 12. Now, sometimes you guys can have different variables, two types of variables. You guys have different numbers. One's a positive, one's a negative. They can be both positives with the binomials or both negatives. So you guys always have to be careful when you multiply those binomials. So let's look at this one here. You want to simplify and you are going to multiply. So one more time, I'm going to take 2x times the 2x here. So that's going to be 4x squared. The 2x times the positive 3. That's going to be a positive 6x. Notice I multiplied 2 times 3 is 6. And you keep the x. Then you guys take the minus 9. Multiply by 2x. That's negative 18x. Negative 9 times 2 is negative 18. Keep the x. And negative 9 times 3. That's going to be negative 27. You guys combine the middle terms. So we have positive 6x and minus 18x. So let me bring down the 4x squared here, minus 12x, 6 minus 18 is negative 12, x minus 27. So we have a trinomial and we multiply using the distributive property. So now let's look at some where you guys have different variables. So when you guys look at this binomial here, we have a 7x in the middle plus y, 7x plus y times 2x minus y. So you guys take the first term right here, 7x times the 2x, that's going to be 14x squared. 7x times negative y. Now remember the y has an invisible 1. So first you multiply the numbers. 7 times negative 1, that is negative 7. And when you multiply x times y, well, they're not the same variable. So just put them side by side. And it has to be in alphabetical order. So x is before the y. So we have negative 7xy. But now you guys take the middle term, positive y, times 2y. So remember the positive y has an invisible 1 exponent. When you multiply positive 1 times 2, that's going to be a positive 2. And when you multiply y times x, y times 2x, you guys are going to multiply the 2 times x is going to be xy. You put the variables side by side and it has to be in alphabetical order. So you are multiplying a y times an x. So it's going to be an xy. X is before the y. Now the next one, you guys are going to multiply the 1y or y times negative 1y. Now those are the same variables. So you guys don't need that 1 because 1 times 1 is 1. But it is going to be a negative y with the squared, because when you multiply a y times a y, it's going to be a y squared. You multiply, you add the exponents of the y. Now the middle term, you guys can combine like terms. This term right here, negative 7xy, and the positive 2xy, they have the same variables and the variables have the same exponents. You can combine the terms. So let me bring down the 14x squared. Negative 7 plus 2, that's negative 5xy. So notice what I did right now. Negative 7 plus 2, that's negative 5. And I keep the same variables, xy. That's combining like terms. You keep the same variables. Minus y squared. So we have the answer when you have different variables. Now, if you look at the first term, x squared, and the last term, y squared, those are not like terms because they have different letters. So you guys do not combine those two terms. So let's try another one where you guys have different variables and you want to use the distributive property. So you guys multiply the 5a right here times the 3a over here. So we have those two binomials. And I'm going to multiply 5 times 3, that's 15a squared. Because you're multiplying, you add the exponents. Then you guys take the 5a times the negative 2b. So notice, first you multiply the numbers. 5 times negative 2, that's negative 10. A times b is just ab. Alphabetical order, a goes first. Then you take the negative 2b times the 3a. So first the numbers, negative 2 times 3, that's negative 6. And b times a, you have to put in alphabetical order, side by side, a, b. So b times a is actually ab in alphabetical order. Then you multiply the negative 2b times the negative 2b. So notice we do have numbers here, negative 2 times negative 2. That's going to be a positive 4, and a b times a b, that's going to be b squared. Now you guys combine the like terms. The ones in the middle, negative 10ab minus 6ab, that's going to be negative 16ab. You add the numbers because they have the same sign and keep the sign. And the variables is just ab. You bring down the 15a squared. You bring down the positive 4b squared. And we got the answer. A squared and b squared are not like terms. So the first term and the last term, nope, you guys do not combine. And we got the answer. Now, when you guys have a binomial times a trinomial, same idea, but you're just going to do it one more time with the trinomial because you guys have 3 terms. So you are going to distribute, but you guys will do it 3 times. So we want to simplify. Once again, I know I have to multiply because I don't have anything in between the parentheses. So I'm going to take the first term here, x plus 9 times x squared minus 4x plus 1. I take this term, I multiply by the x squared. So that's going to be x cubed because you add the exponents. This has an invisible 1. This has a 2 exponent. So 1 plus 2 is 3. Then you go to the next term, x times negative 4x. That's negative 4x squared. And you go to the next term, x times 1. So notice I'm doing another one because I have a trinomial. So x times positive 1, that's positive 1x, or just x. Then you guys take the positive 9 and you do the same thing again. You multiply by x squared. So that's positive 9x squared. Positive 9 times negative 4. That's going to be negative 36x. And then you guys take the positive 9 times the positive 1, and that's going to be a positive 9. 9 times 1 is 9. Now you guys have to look for like terms. So first, I look for the x cubed term. That's the highest exponent, and that's what you want. You always want to start with the highest exponent. I don't have another x cubed. So I'm just going to put an x cubed here. I bring that one down. But then I go on and look for the x squares. So I do have a term, negative 4x squared here, and a positive 9x squared. They have different signs, so I subtract the numbers and I keep the sign of the biggest number. So 4, you take away from 9. So 9 minus 4 is positive 5x squared. And I go to the x's. I do have a positive 1x here and a minus 36x over here. So positive 1 minus 36, that is negative 35x. And finally, guys, the constants, the 9, that's the only constant we have. So I just bring down the 9 here. So my answer is a quadrinomial. You guys have x cubed plus 5x squared minus 35x plus 9. Those are not like terms, so we got the answer. Now notice how the question is set up. Usually, when you guys have a binomial times a trinomial, you always have the binomial first. But I give you guys the next example here to show you that sometimes the trinomial is first and then the binomial. Well, it's the same idea, but you guys are going to kind of multiply everything backwards. One thing you can do is actually switch the parentheses. You can do that, and then you do the same steps as here. But instead of switching the parentheses, you're just going to go backwards from this binomial to the trinomial. So you distribute, and then you multiply this one, and you distribute. So let me show you guys how to do that. Let me just zoom in here so you guys can see the whole problem. And I'm going to multiply the first term in the binomial, so this one here, and I'm going to multiply backwards. I'm going to go back to this one. So 2x times 4x squared, that's positive 8x cubed. Then I multiply 2x times the second term. So that's going to be 2x times x, positive 2x squared. Remember, this x has an invisible 1. 1 times 2 is 2. X times x is x squared. Then you multiply the 2x times the negative 6. And that's going to be a negative 12x. Then you guys take the second term, the minus 3, and you multiply by the first term over here. So negative 3 times 4x squared, that's negative 12x squared. And you take the negative 3 times the positive 1x, that'll be negative 3x. And finally, you multiply negative 3 times negative 6, and that's a negative 18. Not negative, sorry, it's going to be positive because you are multiplying a negative times a negative. It is a positive, so it's a positive 18. Careful with the signs. Always check, double check your signs, okay? So let's start with the highest exponent, x cubed. I don't have another term with the x cubed. So my first term is going to be 8x cubed. Then I look for the x squares. So I do have a positive 2x squared here and a negative 12x over here. So positive 2 minus 12, that is negative 10x squared. And I go with the x's. So for the x's, I have a negative 12x and a minus 3x. They have the same sign, so you add the numbers, keep the sign, minus 15x. And finally, guys, plus 18 is the only constant I have. So I bring down the 18. If you guys have another constant, well, you have to combine with 18. But right now, that's the only one. So we have a 8x cubed minus 10x squared minus 15x plus 18. So make sure you guys use the silver property. Make sure you guys check like terms, combine like terms after you multiply, after you distribute the binomial or whatever you're multiplying. And then after you combine like terms, check your signs, your exponents, and you will be good. So I have one more to show you guys here. We want to simplify, and we do have a trinomial times a trinomial. And I know I have to multiply once again because there's nothing in between the parentheses. There's no plus or minus, so we're not adding, we're not subtracting, we are multiplying. Now this one, guys, is same idea. You guys would distribute, but it's going to be longer because you guys have more terms. 3 trinomial times 3 trinomial. So we are going to multiply the first term, 2x squared times 3x squared. That's going to be 6x to the 4th power. Notice I do add the exponents because I am multiplying x squared times x squared. That's x to the 4th power. And 2 times 3 is 6. You move on to the next term. 2x squared times negative 5x. That's negative 10x cubed. You guys add the exponents and you multiply the numbers. Then you guys move to the next one, and the last one is 2x squared times 2, positive 2. That's a positive 4x squared. Now you guys are going to do the middle term, positive 3x. And you do the process again. You multiply positive 3x times positive 3x squared. That's a positive 9x cubed. And now you multiply positive 3x times the next term, negative 5x, that's negative 15x squared. And the last one is positive 3x times positive 2. That's going to be a positive 6x. Now you guys have one more term in that trinomial, the negative 1. You also have to multiply by the second trinomial. So you are going to distribute the negative 1. So the negative 1 here times the 3x squared, that's going to be a negative 3x squared. And the negative 1 times the next term, negative 5x, that's going to be a positive 5x. Negative times negative is positive. And negative 1 times a positive 2, that's going to be a negative 2. So I kind of use color coding so you guys can see what we multiply. So the first term is in red. You guys see everything I multiplied right here for the first term. The second term is in purple. So all of this right here is when I multiply everything by 3x squared. All of this by 3x. Not squared, sorry. I just multiply by 3x. And the last one is kind of orange. I multiply the negative 1 times the trinomial. Now you guys combine like terms. So you always start with the highest exponent, which is the standard form. So the highest exponent is 4. So I'm looking at the trinomial and I don't have another x to the 4th power. So I'm just going to bring that term down, 6x to the 4th power. I do have an x cubed. For my x cubes, I have a negative 10x cubed plus 9x cubed. So they do have different signs. I subtract the numbers and I keep the sign of the biggest number. So the biggest one is 10. So it's going to be negative 1x cubed. I don't need that 1 next to the x, but you do have an x cubed. Notice I didn't add the exponents because I'm not multiplying. I am combining like terms. So now I do have x squares. So I have a positive 4x squared right here. I have a minus 15x squared over here. And I do have another x squared over here, negative 3x squared. So when I do positive 4 minus 15, that's negative 11, minus 3, that's going to be negative 14x squared. And that's just mental math. You guys combine the terms. And I'm just combining the bubbles, the ones with the x squared. So I got negative 14x squared. The next one is the x. So now I do the positive 6x and positive 5x. That's going to be a positive 11x. And the last one, guys, I do have a constant. I'm looking, and I don't have another constant. So you just bring down the minus 2. So my answer is all of this polynomial right here. It is 5 terms. So we don't have a specific name, polynomial, but we do know that it is a degree of 4, which is a quartic degree. Notice that I do have to combine like terms. So I'm trying to color code and I'm trying to use different shapes so you know what to combine. So we always combine boxes with boxes. Those are the x cubes. Bubbles with bubbles. Those are the x squares. And there's another x square over here. So bubble, bubble, bubble. And you guys have triangle, triangle. So those are the x's. And the constant is by itself. And the x to the fourth power is by itself. Alright guys, so this concludes my video. If you guys like the video, you guys can subscribe to my channel. You can also like my videos and make sure you guys practice, and I'll see you guys later.